The news we hear about climate change keep getting worse and worse. Is this what we want? War? Famine? Mass destruction of nature? We can't just sit back and watch. We have to act. And it starts with you. Because you have a choice. Choices like the way you travel. Electric scooters and public transport are some of the ways you can lower your carbon footprint. Choosing these options over your car is crucial, as transportation accounts for 14% of global CO2 emissions and up to 30% of the EU's emissions. The car industry as a whole plays a massive part in global climate change. Saying no to cars is a strike at this global behemoth of emissions, and most of us have the choice to say no. Another choice are the clothes we wear. As consumption has become a pastime through normalization of marketing and the rise of online shopping, the clothing companies have focused on expansion instead of sustainability. And now the fashion industry and its supply chain account for 5% of global emissions. But we have a choice. Secondhand stores and thrift stores offer a more sustainable option for clothing. Lowering demand for these massive fashion brands by favoring to buy used clothes has a real impact. The effects of this can already be seen as the popularity of secondhand stores has allowed them to open locations in more prominent areas, exposing more people to the chance to make a more sustainable choice. But we cannot completely stop consumption. And as a byproduct of that consumption, there will always be trash. But even here, we have a choice. Recycling reduces the impact of energy and emissions by massive amounts. Reductions of up to 50% for plastic and 70 to 80% for paper and aluminium. Here, Finland can be used as a great example. Only 1% of Finnish trash ends up in landfills, with 30% of it being recycled and 55% of it used as biofuel for heat production. And here, the government plays a large role in producing this culture of recycling, with programs like the bottle deposit, which rewards people for recycling. Food is another thing we cannot simply stop producing. Food and its supply chain account for an immense 34% of global CO2 production. Since we don't have a choice whether we eat or not, we have to make the choice with the food we do eat. Choices like favoring locally produced ingredients to reduce the emissions produced during the transportation process, removing or reducing meat from our diets, as meat production is the least sustainable of all food production, and actually eating the food we buy, as a way to cut back on the emissions created during the waste transportation and also reducing the demand for new food. These individual choices we can make are important, but they alone are not enough. When the richest 10% alone create more pollution than half of the world, it's not enough to buy used clothes. When just 100 companies are responsible for 70% of global emissions, it is not enough to use public transport. Governments and companies must be held accountable. They uphold a system that requires infinite growth on a finite planet, a system that cannot sustainably continue. Through unity and action, we can make changes. Every movement starts with a single idea, and we must come together to make our voices heard. We don't have time to sit around and wait for someone. We each have to be that someone. Even if the road towards a solution to climate change is hard, it is important to understand it is not impossible. Hope is our most powerful weapon. We need change now and not someday in the future. Will you make the choice?